Hey everyone, welcome back. In one of our earlier tutorials, don't worry, I'll link it in the description. We talked about the three pillars that really help demonstrate the impact of medical affairs. Just to recap, they were first, aligning with the overall organizational strategy. Second, developing strong business acumen. And third, mastering advanced communication skills. Now, in today's session, we're going to zoom in on that third pillar, communication. But not just any kind of communication. We're focusing on something powerful and often underestimated, storytelling. And more specifically, how storytelling can be a game changer for field medical teams. Let's get into it. For field medical teams, whether you're an MSL, a medical advisor, or a medical manager, your goal isn't just to deliver data. Anyone can present a slide with clinical endpoints or safety profiles. What sets you apart is how you make that information stick, and that's where storytelling comes in. Now, when we say storytelling, we're not talking about fictional tales or dramatic flair. We're talking about taking real scientific insights, wrapping them in purpose, and delivering them in a way that resonates. Whether you're meeting with a KOL, collaborating with internal teams, or presenting to leadership, a well-structured story can help you guide the conversation, highlight the so what behind the data, and ultimately drive action. Think of it this way. Storytelling helps you move from being the messenger of facts to being the driver of impact. It helps you translate complexity into clarity and clarity into value. And in a field like medical affairs, that's what builds influence. So, in this tutorial, we're going to walk through how to apply storytelling techniques in your day-to-day field interactions, step by step. From crafting SPAR stories to using simple frameworks that tie your work back to strategic objectives, you'll see how to communicate not just what you do, but why it matters. Let's break it down. So, what exactly do we mean by storytelling in the context of field medical affairs? Well, it's not about crafting fictional tales or dramatic speeches. It's about using structured, purposeful narratives to bring your scientific and strategic messages to life. Think of it as organizing facts in a way that makes them easier to understand, more relatable, and ultimately more impactful. In the field, this could look like a few different things. For example, you might present clinical data in a way that's not just about numbers, but about what those numbers mean in a real-world context. You could share a meaningful HCP or patient story that helps humanize a disease area or bring awareness to an unmet need. Or maybe you're feeding insights back to internal teams, using a story format to show patterns you're seeing in the field and why they matter. And let's be honest, one of the biggest challenges we face in medical affairs is explaining the value of our work, especially since it's often non-promotional and evidence-based. This is where storytelling becomes a strategic tool. It helps you communicate impact clearly in a way that gets people to care and act. So again, it's not fiction, it's fact, communicated with intention, structure, and meaning. That's the heart of storytelling in medical affairs. So, why field medical teams need storytelling skills? 1. To humanize the science. Let's be real. Most of the HCPs you engage with are already deeply familiar with the core data. So repeating stats isn't enough. What does make a difference is giving those stats meaning. Storytelling allows you to wrap clinical data into patient-centered contexts. Think treatment journeys, care challenges, or real-world obstacles. Here's the shift. Instead of saying, this monoclonal antibody reduced disease progression by 42%, you could say, one patient in the trial had already tried everything else. This new therapy gave him 18 months of progression-free survival. Months he used to walk his daughter to school every day. Same data, entirely different level of engagement. 2. To drive medical insights. Up the value chain. Now, it's not just about delivering data to the field, it's also about bringing insights back from the field. But here's the challenge. Insights can often be scattered, isolated, or lacking context. Storytelling helps you connect the dots and present insights in a way that sparks action. This is where the SPAR format, situation, problem, action, result, comes in. It gives structure to your observations and shows the path from insight to impact. For example, situation. Oncologists flagged delays in diagnosing metastatic melanoma. Problem. The issue traced back to limited awareness in primary care. Action. You and your team launched a CME program focused on early detection. Result. 6 months later, referral rates rose by 28% in key regions. That's no longer just a data point. That's a story that inspires action across the organization. 3. To show the strategic impact of medical activities. Let's face it, medical teams are often asked, what's the ROI of this initiative? And it's not always easy to put a number on things like an ad board, an insight, or an engagement. But when you tell the story of what changed because of that activity, that's when you move from reporting numbers to showing real impact. Let's have an example. Instead of saying 35 KOLs attended the advisory board, try this. During the advisory board, a KOL shared how the current patient education materials weren't resonating with their local population. That feedback sparked a collaboration with the medical and marketing teams, and within a month, we co-developed a new set of culturally adapted materials. Since then, HCPs have reported better patient understanding and engagement with the treatment plan. That's how you make your work visible, relevant, and aligned with the bigger picture. So, whether you're aiming to connect with HCPs, elevate field insights, or demonstrate strategic value to leadership, storytelling is your bridge. Up next, let's talk about how to actually build these stories step by step. Perfect. Now let's break down what makes a medical story really effective. Whether you're preparing for a KOL meeting, presenting to internal stakeholders, or sharing a field insight, your story needs to have a few essential ingredients. And when these come together, they don't just inform, they influence. Let's walk through them one by one. And don't worry, we'll be showing these later in a simple table on your slides for easy reference. Clarity. First up, clarity. This means stripping away the jargon. You don't need to simplify the science. You just need to explain it simply. Use language that's easy to follow, especially when you're speaking to someone outside your immediate field, or when you're summarizing data. Clarity builds trust, and trust keeps people listening. Structure. Next is structure. Every effective story has a flow. Start with the beginning. Set the context. Then move into the middle. Highlight the challenge or the decision point. And finally, land on the end. What was the outcome or the impact? This three-part structure keeps your story tight, organized, and easy to follow. Emotion and relevance. Here's where the story becomes memorable. Science alone doesn't always stick, but when you tie it to a real patient impact or an HCP perspective, it becomes personal. Emotion isn't about being dramatic. It's about making the story matter. Show how the data touches real lives. That's what creates resonance. Evidence. Of course, every good medical story still needs to stand on solid ground. Back it up with real data, references, or medical rationale. You're not just telling a good story, you're telling a true one. And that's especially important in medical affairs, where everything must be evidence-based and non-promotional. Actionable insight. And finally, your story should lead somewhere. After hearing it, what should your listener think, feel, or do? Maybe it's raising awareness, changing a behavior, or influencing a strategy. Whatever it is, Make sure your story ends with a clear takeaway. So to recap, the 5 elements are clarity, structure, emotion and relevance, evidence, and actionable insight. Together, these turn a message into a story, and a story into a tool for impact. Now let's talk about something really practical: how to actually build storytelling into your daily work as a field medical professional. Storytelling isn't just for big presentations or workshops. It's something you can use every single day to make your communication more engaging and impactful. Here's how to weave it into your routine. Before call meetings, start with preparation. Don't just review the slides or memorize key messages. Instead, think about how to bring those messages to life. Prepare patient journeys, case examples, or real-world scenarios that can make your points more relatable. If you're discussing a new treatment option, can you share a story that highlights the need for it or show how it fits into a real treatment pathway? The goal is to move from "here's the data" to "here's why this data matters in your world." During insight reporting, when you're feeding insights back to your team, don't just send in raw notes or bullet points. That kind of reporting often lacks context and can get lost in translation. Instead, take a moment to structure your observations into a mini story. What did you see? Why does it matter? And what could it mean going forward? Even a short SPAR-style summary, situation, problem, action, result, can turn fragmented insights into powerful narratives that leadership can actually use. In cross-functional meetings, these are the moments where strategy comes to life or gets lost in data. Instead of just showing a chart or quoting numbers, use a story to explain those numbers. Maybe it's how a certain HCP insight led to a shift in engagement strategy, or how patient barriers in the field are impacting access despite strong clinical evidence. Stories here help connect the dots between science, field experience, and business direction, while coaching peers or juniors. And finally, storytelling is a fantastic tool when mentoring others. If you're coaching a new MSL or guiding a colleague through a complex situation, don't just give instructions, share experiences. Tell them about a time when you faced a similar challenge. What did you learn? What worked and what didn't? These stories stick with people much more than a checklist ever will. They help build confidence, judgment, and a stronger sense of how to navigate the role. So whether you're in the field, on a call, in a meeting, or mentoring a colleague, storytelling isn't extra work. It's a smarter way to do the work you're already doing. Now, before we wrap up, let's quickly address something that often comes up when we talk about storytelling in medical affairs: the common barriers. A lot of field teams hesitate to use storytelling because they feel like it's either too difficult, too subjective, or maybe even too fluffy for a scientific setting. So let's clear that up. Barrier 1. I'm not a natural storyteller. This is probably the most common one. And here's the truth. Storytelling is a skill, not a gift. No one is born doing SPAR frameworks in field debriefs. It comes with practice. Start by using simple formats like SPAR, situation, problem, action, result, or STAR, situation, task, action, result. These give you structure, so you're not starting from scratch each time. The more you use them, the more naturally storytelling will come. Barrier 2. I don't want to oversimplify the science. This is a valid concern, especially in medical affairs where accuracy is everything. But here's the key. You're not dumbing it down, you're structuring it for clarity. Think of it like packaging. The content inside stays the same, but the way it's delivered helps the audience engage with it more easily. Storytelling doesn't remove the science. It helps the science land better. Barrier 3. We should be objective. Absolutely, you should. Objectivity is core to our credibility. But storytelling doesn't take away objectivity. It actually enhances understanding. By providing context, real-world application, and emotional relevance, your story helps others grasp and retain the facts better. You're still being evidence-based. You're just presenting that evidence in a way that's relatable and compelling. So, if any of these barriers have been holding you back, now you know. Storytelling isn't about changing the science, it's about changing how people connect to the science. All right, let's bring it all together. In today's world, where there's no shortage of data, dashboards, and information, what actually sticks with people are stories. And as field medical professionals, you're in a truly unique position. You're not just delivering information, you're translating evidence into action. And storytelling? That's the key that unlocks that impact. A well-told story can do so much. It can shift the perspective of a skeptical HCP, influence internal stakeholders who may not fully grasp the medical value, and even spark change at the organizational level. And when you start using storytelling consistently, not just as a presentation tool, but as part of how you communicate every day, something powerful happens. You're no longer just seen as someone who brings the science. You become a strategic partner who helps people understand it, apply it, and act on it. So here's the takeaway. Start with one story. Build it with clarity, purpose, and relevance. And then keep telling better ones. Because the more you practice it, the more impact you'll create. Thanks for staying with us through this session. We've covered a lot, from understanding what storytelling means in medical affairs, to why it matters so much for field teams, to how you can actually start applying it in your daily practice. And remember, this isn't about adding more work. It's about communicating your existing work in a way that drives more meaning, more connection, and more impact. As you head into your next KOL meeting, cross-functional call, or insight report, pause and ask yourself, is there a story here? What's the bigger message behind the data? And how can I help others see it clearly? Because when you master the art of storytelling, you're not just sharing information, you're influencing decisions, building trust, and advancing medical strategy. If you found this tutorial helpful, make sure to check out the previous sessions in the series, especially the one where we break down the 3 pillars of medical affairs impact. The link is in the description. Thanks again for watching. And as always, keep learning, keep leading, and keep telling stories that matter.